this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the beautiful new Broomhill die from the John Next Door collection to make a really simple but stunning card. So we're going to make a version of this, and this looks so effective, but it's literally just a case of cutting the dies in the set, and there's so many options you can do with this. It's really interchangeable. So you've actually got the big outside frame, you've got a line that fits to give you a mat into there. You've got the beautiful sort of, it's almost like feathered panel. You've then got 3 nesting dies in that exclusive shape, which again, just beautiful on their own. You've got this little center which echoes those little feathers. So it's perfect for making your own little special embellishments or quite masculine flowers with this. So we're going to start making this die. We're going to start making this card. So what I've done is I've started with a frame. So I've already got a frame that's been cut, and I've done this using the press cut plain square nesting dies. And basically I've made a sort of a 5.5 inch and then a 5.25 inch aperture. But check out the videos on the channel to see how to make frames just like this. I've then cut pieces to 7.25, because this frame is 7.5 inches wide, so that it fits underneath and I don't have to trim anything off. So we're basically going to start by layering down. So I'm going to take the first piece, which is a piece of white, and I'm going to put my frame into place. So you need to make your frame first to make sure you're getting everything beautifully centered. And we're going to start with die number 1 from the set, which is the frame. And the frame cuts all of this detail out, cuts this beautiful shape in the center, but doesn't cut out on the outside. So you can cut this into a piece of card to make it a topper, or you can cut it out with another plain die, but cutting in is just beautiful. So all I'm going to do is just slide that into my frame and roughly get it centered. Tape it down well, as we don't want that to move. We simply remove our frame and we cut that piece. And here I've got that piece already cut. So you can see now just how that frame fits. Nothing shows on the other side. We've got that beautiful filigree. So next we want to cut a mat for that. So I take away the frame as we've used that, keep the white piece, and here's another piece of card. This has been cut in the sky blue Craft Artist Essential card. All the card I'm using in this is Craft Artist Essential card. I'm using coconut white, sky blue and sea blue for this. So we put that into place, and we take the next die in the set, which is die number 2. And again, we just arrange that using the outside frame. Again, tape that down securely. Remove our frame, and we die cut that panel. And die cutting that will give us this panel here. So it's a beautiful aperture on its own. And we simply match that over. And it doesn't matter if there's a little bit of overlap on any of these sides, because your frame is slightly larger and will hide it. So you can see there, we've got that beautiful filigree. And there you could have a beautiful stamped image, you could have a sentiment or anything, or you can continue cutting down, which is what I'm going to do next. So again, we'll take away the frame, we'll take away the white piece, just leave ourselves with the sort of 3rd layer. And this time I've got this cut in the sea blue, so we'll match them up again, and we'll take the next die down in the set, which is the beautiful sort of feather panel. And again, we'll place that down, we'll tape that down, and we will run that through and cut that. So again, remove the frame piece, we'll run that through and cut that die. And that will give us this is a beautiful aperture, but it will also give us the piece from the center, which we can use for another project. I've actually already used the piece from this one for another project. So next, we need something to fit into here. So we take the waist from the center of the blue panel. So we take the waist from the center of here, and we cut out this die on its own. And this die on its own gives you this beautiful piece. Again, we could add the center in to make it into a frame, or we can leave it solid, and we've left it solid. So what I want to do is I want to drop this gently into the die cut piece, just like that. And what we want to do is we want this to float. So I'm going to put it into place, take a little bit of low tack tape and just tape it into place, turn it over, and then on the back I'm using normal sticky tape or sellotape. I'm just going to tape this in on the 4 panels. This way you could use a piece of acetate, but you don't want to waste a piece of acetate, it's not necessary. Just using a little bit of sticky tape, that's stuck onto these 4 feathered sections, as you can see there. When we turn that over, that is now floating in that panel. So all I need to do is then quite simply remove the low tack tape carefully. Always end up leaving a little bit behind. Remember, if you get any glue marks from this, just use your Crafts 2 glue eraser to take any marks off. So we have a floating panel, and we would simply then pop that behind or in front of a white panel, and that little bit floating there works. So we'll start constructing this, and then we'll build the center. So turn it over, and you'll see there I've already put foam tape all the way around here for speed, but I don't want this front middle panel to flop. So we put a little bit of tape on there, and we simply remove the foam tape from all of the areas, and you'll notice that there's 4 pieces of foam tape, one against each sort of little section of the aperture, each little corner, and that's to stop that flopping down, because we've cut quite a lot out, so we don't want it to flop. You want to see the dimension. So we simply turn that over, stick that down, and you can see there we've got that floating little panel, but we've got that little bit of shadow. It adds a little bit more interest for the eye to the card. We simply then take the next layer. So we're now working our way up, and again, foam tape around all 4 sides. And you can make this as a flat card, you can flat mount it, but I use 2mm foam tape, which means that on this card I'm really only going to about 8mm, so it's still okay to post as a normal letter until I add the flowers. So just take this off, and again, 4 little pieces of foam tape to support the 4 corners, and we simply stand over this. It's better to stand up and do this, and just make sure it's nice and fully in the right position. Look in the center, don't worry about the outside. The frame will cover anything, so that fits perfectly. We then finally take the next layer, which is the cut with die 1, which is the beautiful sort of feathered filigree section. And again, foam tape around 4 places, none in the middle because there's nowhere really big enough, and it's held quite well in the way the die's been designed. And again, hover over, matching the 4 points, and you're matching these 4 points here. We put that down, and you've got, it's almost like a trick, a trompe l'oeil, as they say in French, a trick of the eye, because you're sort of going in and you're going to be coming out and you're seeing shadows. I think that's really is beautiful. Now, before I add the frame, I'm going to add the next layers on, and all I've done is to cut the last 3 dies in the set in alternating colours. So from the waist of the blue, I've cut a blue panel. And again, you could leave this, stamp your sentiment in the middle there. So there we go, that one in the centre. I've cut the next layer down in white, so keeping to that 3 colour scheme. There we go. And then finally finishing with the sea blue on the top. And we're fitting that in. And that's where I could then cut, if I wanted to, one of the little feather and pop that in, or I could put a little sentiment in, or I could do what I'm going to do on this one, which is simply take one of the new Craft Artist pearls in the larger size, and I'm just going to pop that in the center, and I'm going to echo that with 4 pearls on the 4 circular points that I've almost been, you'd think I'd designed it to take a pearl, and me being someone who loves these, then it's pretty much certain that's what I did. So you can see there, just adds that little bit more shine. All we need to do to finish this then is to take our frame, and we want to make sure we get our frame in the right place. So again, strips of foam tape all the way around, but they're very close to the aperture because that's where your eye will go, and we want that shadow to be there. So we take those pieces off. I'm just going to use a little bit of wet glue. Again, just check that it's flowing, as I'm terrible for not prepping my glue ahead of time. Yep. And we're just going to put a couple of little blobs on each bit of the foam tape. That means that we've got time to move this and it not stick down until I'm completely happy again that it's exactly in the center, and I've got the same level of white running all the way around. It's then simply a case of adding a wet glue, and I would add wet glue to this because you've added some weight, so you want that brilliant weld. And obviously I'm going to recommend for this the Craft Artist glue, as I think it's amazing. And again, we just evenly place that on a card which is cut to 8 by 8 and has a mat of the sea blue on there. So there is the base of our card completed. And if you go to the video for the mallow flower and leaves, you'll see how the flowers are created, and we'll add the flowers onto this card in a similar way to this one originally.